Those are some children's pieces by Komitas, performed by Şahan Arzruni. Hello and welcome to Revolutions Per Minute here on KALW. I'm Sarah Cahill, and tonight in about 13 minutes I'll be speaking with pianist Şahan Arzruni. He's recorded a new album of music by Armenian women composers. We'll also be celebrating the birthdays today of Czech composer Bohuslav Martinu and American composer Jesse Montgomery. Let's begin with some preludes by Gayane Chebotaryan with pianist Şahan Arzruni.
as the sun rests at
Preludes by Gayane Chebotaryan with pianist Şahan Arzruni, who is my guest. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure, Sarah.
It's great to be with you
My
again.
pleasure.
It's been a number of years since since we did an interview here on KALW. So thank you
That's right.
for joining me. Yeah, this is such a terrific album called By Women. It's
Right.
an album of all female Armenian composers. And
Yes.
I know this is the question you get asked probably the most, but how did you decide to make this album of all women from Armenia?
Well, actually, this is part of a series of 8 CDs. This is the fourth one. And the first one was the complete piano works of Komitas, who is the uh, fountainhead of contemporary Armenian music. And then the second one was composers who lived at the turn of the century, 20th century. And the third one was very curious. Alan Hovhannes, before he had died, he gave me some 30 or so manuscripts. And he asked me if I would record some of them if I had the opportunity. They were not printed, they were not performed, they were not recorded. So the third one, I was able to do 9 compositions. And this one was supposed to be Armenian composers living in the diaspora. But, each of those CDs need to be sponsored, obviously. And the people who were willing to sponsor one of the recordings, they asked that it would be devoted to Armenian women composers. I was going to do that, but that was number 7. So I said, don't miss the opportunity, just do it. You were going to do it anyway. So I did some research and all that. Actually, the money was given to me in right before the pandemic, and of course all the studios, everything was closed in 2020, and I had some medical problems, and it was not, I didn't start recording until last year actually, and it came out in March or April of this year. So I think we will, if possible, I would like to continue and finish the series.
Yeah.
So this is the fourth one devoted to Armenian women composers. I found, believe it or not, 38 women composers.
How
And
did you make the choice then for just
well,
this album?
number one, I didn't know all the works. I went through Wikipedia. Charles Amirkhanian, probably you know
Ah, of
him.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
he helped me with some of the names,
Ah,
and the other people helped me. And we did come out with 38 names. Out of those, I had access, let's say, to 15 of the composers. I chose what I liked, I
yeah.
responded to, and that's it.
It's
And
Yeah, it's an enormous range from sort of late 19th century right up to new commissioned works. And you've been an advocate for music by women all your life. So you recorded works by Miriam Gideon and Louise Talma and others.
yeah.
But I want to ask you, when we talked several years ago,
Mm,
when we did an interview here on KALW, you talked about your aunt and your
yes.
first piano teacher and how she introduced you to new music, and you actually include a wonderful work of hers on this album. And I wonder if you could sort of talk about your aunt as an early influence of of a woman who composes and how she sort of encouraged you in new music, and you're also a composer yourself.
Yes, she was a pianist, and when she got married in 1944, uh, when she was practicing, her mother-in-law did not appreciate her playing the piano, and actually, she told me this herself. One day, uh, there was a bear dancing in the street right outside of their apartment where they were living. And there was also the owner of the bear who, after finishing the dance, would pass the head around for money. And the mother in law said, Silvart, that's my aunt's first name. Silvart, come here. I want to show you something. And my aunt, while she was playing the piano, interrupted her practicing and went. And the mother in law said, see, even the bear can make money with the music and the dance. You can even do that.
Oh.
So then my aunt got the message, so to speak, that she really, the mother in law, did not really appreciate her playing the piano. So she wanted to make music. And the only other possibility, which was silent, was to compose music. And she started by writing music for piano. It was a medium which she knew. But eventually she found out that she was very original in writing melodies to Armenian texts. So she has written a lot of vocal music. I mean, her piano pieces are like 5 or 6. She has over 100 vocal pieces, which are really extraordinary. The piano pieces perhaps are not that original, but the vocal pieces, they are something else. But what happened was when my parents got divorced, it was very, very unusual for people to get divorced in the 40s. I was born in 43, so this is happening in 47. They just, you just didn't do that. There was no divorce. You just put up with it and you lived together. But whatever the reason, they decided to get a divorce, and I was living with my mother at my grandmother's house, where there was my aunt's piano. And apparently, when I was 3.5 years old, I started, you know, I wasn't banging on the keys, but I was actually trying to make some kind of a music. And that came to my aunt's attention, and she wanted to see if I really had musical talent. And she discovered that, yes, I did have. And she took me to her teacher, um, and Mr. Stepan Papelian, he felt that I was also talented. Eventually, my aunt took me to her Austrian teacher at the conservatory, and I became his student at the conservatory until I came to this country in 64.
Yeah.
Well, that's the story.
Um, this is a wonderful piece by her called Dance Song.
Right.
And her name is Sirvart Karamanuk.
Karamuk. Yeah.
Karamanuk. Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
how you say it?
Karamuk.
Karamanuk.
Karamanuk.
It's wonderful. Let's listen to it
Sure.
and talk again. Okay,
Sure.
good. So this is by your aunt.
Right.
Wonderful. That's Dance Song by Sirvart Karamanuk from the
Right.
new album by Women by my guest Şahan Arzruni. And that's just so beautiful. Did you
Yeah.
work on that piece with her, with your aunt?
No. I was when she wrote that piece. Actually, that's her last piano piece. I was in this country, so I had absolutely nothing to do with any of that. As you can tell, because she's a pianist, she has written very well, very idiomatically for the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
It 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 it. It's like Rachmaninoff, a pianist can do it. It sounds much more complicated, much more difficult
Yeah.
than it really is.
Yeah.
But she knew how to work the piano
Yes.
Uh, so she has all her piano works are like that. They sound wonderful on the instrument because they are written for the instrument. She knew uh, how to make the piano sound like a piano.
Mm,
So that's how I have done. I have composed. No, I'm sorry. I have recorded one of her other pieces also.
mm.
But as I said before, she is much better known for her vocal music.
I see. I see. We
Yeah.
should mention that you were born in Istanbul and you came to this country. You went to Juilliard and had a long association with Victor Borge, which is just so amazing. I mean, many of us, I think, were introduced to your work through the videos, which are just so wonderful, which are online of you being straight man for Victor Borge
Right.
for many years, and
Right.
which I would imagine is not easy to do, to be funny on stage, to have that comedic element and be such a so brilliant as a pianist as well. I mean, you have to be sort of playing Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies from the side of the piano or something. So it's
Uh,
yeah.
I mean, it was a big study for me to be with him for so many years. I mean, I developed as a musician a great deal. And what do I mean by that is to communicate with the audience.
Hmm.
And all of that comedy business is all about timing. I mean, Victor Borga's timing was so extraordinary. And I mean, maybe I have done 3,000 performances with him. And most of the time, I would go and watch him from backstage when he was alone on stage. And his timing was so exquisite. I mean, you know, there is an audience out there, and the way they respond to you determines how you time yourself for what you're going to say next. And that is an extraordinary ability.
Hmm.
And he was a genius, Victor Borga.
Yeah.
I learned, and I was introduced to the musical world through him. I mean, I have to admit that.
Amazing.
Without him, I would have been nobody.
No, you two are incredible together. It's
Yeah, thank you.
amazing, and also your uh, besides being a pianist, you're a composer yourself. You're a teacher. You're a musicologist. You, I would imagine, for an album like this, it takes incredible research and detective work, finding the scores, and maybe there isn't a tremendous amount of information about some of the early 20th century Armenian composers. So, does it? I mean, how is it to find the scores that
You
you
know,
use in this recording?
it's all about networking. You have to know people. You
Like
have to know
Charles
the right
Amirkhanian.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you have to ask the right question.
Hmm.
Then it becomes much easier. You cannot do any of this stuff by yourself. You need help. You need friends. And I know a lot of people. And as you said earlier, I have a special interest in women composers with Miriam Gideon and Louise Talma and others. So the subject matter was not such a difficult thing for me. I was open to the idea of women composers. I mean, it's really silly. It's to say women composers, men composers. There is absolutely no difference between the two. Either they are good composers or bad
Hmm.
composers. You can have
As
women.
as is attributed to Duke Ellington, there's just good music and bad music. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So that's what I mean. It's the in thing right now. I mean, I think the sponsors wanted to take advantage of the women thing because it sells records and it has sold uh, a tremendous amount. One of the funny things is that CDs are not selling anymore,
Hmm.
and it's much easier to purchase this stuff on Spotify or Amazon or whatever it is. But I mean, there are no record stores. There's nothing like that anymore. So just you don't make you. I mean, an artist of my stature cannot make money out of recording because I mean the CDs don't sell and Armenians are not that big in news. The news is that they happen to be Armenian women composers. It's the Me Too movement that started the whole thing. But for me, one of the things that I found out, which I didn't know, uh, and it is a very important thing, is that the first woman composer in the world is an Armenian
Mm.
from the 8th century. Actually, there were two women composers, contemporaries. And may I tell you the story about them?
Yes, but I want to say it's not just the Me Too movement. It's that I think it's incredibly valuable that we're hearing music that has been unjustly neglected, and that there are so many composers who we haven't heard just based on their gender or their race. And now we're hearing much more of this music, and it's only a good thing. It's
Yeah.
only a very, very positive thing. And the fact that most of these are first recordings of works that have been around for 100 years. I think that's remarkable. But yes, please tell me the story about the early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before, I was thinking about the following. I don't know whether this is correct or not. You tell me. I have heard that Felix Mendelssohn's sister was a composer, and she had written some wonderful pieces,
Mhm.
vocal music. And the stuff that she had written would not sell. So Mendelssohn, Felix, the brother, decided to put his name instead of his sister's name. Then the songs sold. I mean,
He
there
brought
is,
them to Queen Victoria. He brought them to Queen Victoria, and she
yes,
chose the ones she liked, and they were by Fanny Mendelssohn, his sister. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, the story is the following. Uh, the two composers that we know are from the 8th century. One is called Sahak Duht, and the other one is called Khosrovi Duht. Duht in Armenian means daughter. So when you say Sahak Duht, the daughter of Sahak. Khosrovi Duht, the daughter of Khosrov. Khosrovido came from a royal family, actually, and she had a younger brother whose name was Vahan, and the Arabs conquered Armenia when Vahan was only the brother, only 4 years old, and they took him down to Damascus, to Syria. Speaking of Syria, uh,
And
and
Damascus.
yeah, and
Yeah.
yes, and they made him a Muslim, and they took the sister Khosrovi Dort to Amasya. That's a city that still exists in Anatolia. And there in the state of Amasya, there is a small city or town, I should say. There was apparently a tower, and they imprisoned her in the tower. Meanwhile, the brother Vahan, who was taken to Damascus, became the advisor when he grew up to the sheikh of Damascus. But when Vahan, the brother, arrived at a certain age, he realized that he was born a Christian and wanted to convert back to Christianity. And if that happens, I understand, according to the uh, Islamic law, you are beheaded. And Vahan was beheaded. And when the news arrived to his sister in this tower, who was imprisoned in the tower, she expressed her lament by writing a poetry and putting the text into music. And that's Zarman Aliyev Ints. That it's wondrous to me. This I knew, and I wanted, as you said, I was very comfortable with women being musicians, so I wanted to have a chanting of this music uh, to an Argentine Armenian composer, Alicia Terzian, and I asked her if she would write for me a piece of music that utilized the chant and added the piano part, a piano part. But she actually took it further, and she electronically changed the song itself. The song was recorded in the 1950s in Moscow by a very well-known chanter. Her name is, I forget right now. If it comes to me, I will let you know. She has that. What was her name? And then she added a reading of the text itself by a very well-known Silva Gomegyan. His surname.
Let's listen to it. It begins with a big chord cluster in the piano part, right, in the bass register. And what else are there special effects on the piano that you're doing?
No, it's extremely simple. Actually, the piano part is taken from the chant itself.
Okay.
And just transformed it and this and that. And it's a single melodic line. It's just one hand, and there are some drawn notes you play with your left hand.
Yeah.
It's called Ode to Vahan.
By Alicia Terzian.
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 Yeah.
Let's listen
She
to
was,
it. Oh,
okay.
yeah. Okay.
Զարմանալի է ինձ, քան ձերքս երաժշտականած, ձայնս ողբոց քոց հնչմունք, ով երանելի դերվահան, ընտրյալ Աստծո, առավել հորթոր է այս հոգվույս մասունս, հորինել քեզ երկս, ոչ սղճականս, այլ հոգևորս և ուրախարարս, հորթորականս և ներփողյանս, ով երանելի դերվահան, ծառա Քրիստոսի, զարգուրեցուցան է ըսկո ճգնությունդ, ըզմարնույս բնությունս, իսկ դու առավել կդար, ով երանելի դերվահան, սիրող Քրիստոսի, արդակնոցն զգաստն, ըստեղծիչ պանք, սնոդյաց նիպադրություն, իսկ կույտ, սիրայնո, աստվածարյալ և ոգեշար, ով երանելի դերվահան, ընտրյալ հազադած, որպես քաչ նահատակ, պատրաստյալ ի պատերազմ, կատարեցեր զընթացքս քո արի ապար, արդակնոցն զգաստքն, ըստեղծիչ պանք, սնոդյաց նիպադրություն, իսկ ով երանելի սիրայնո, աստվածարյալ և ոգեշար, ով երանելի դերվահան, ընտրյալ հազադած, որպես քաչ նահատակ, պատրաստյալ ի պատերազմ, կատարեցեր զընթացքս քո արի ապար, ասկացն հարավայնո, թասավորյալ ընդ անմարնականս, ով երանելի դերվահան, կողտյաց իշխեցո,
That's Ode to Vahan by Alicia Terzian, pianist Arzruni.
Yeah.
Şahan Arzruni, from your new album called By Women, here on KALW San Francisco Bay Area. I'm Sarah Cahill with you every Sunday evening, and what a haunting piece. Yes. So that's she's using the original Armenian chants from the 8th century,
and she's electronically
Yeah.
changing, so obviously. And then, the narrator is reading the poem. And then, especially the middle section, where it's all monophonic, the piano, uh, takes parts from the original chant, and she comes up with a new melody.
And
It's
she's an Argentine Armenian composer. Is that right?
Argentine.
You commissioned this work from her? She
Oh, I
wrote it
did.
for you?
Some friends did.
She
I
but
wanted
on
this
on
written for me.
but she wrote it for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But, there's a tape that, I play along with the piano. So there are two elements, the solo piano part, which is live, and then the tape that contains the narration and her electronic interpretation of the 8th century liturgical chant.
Yeah. You were also close to Koharik Gazarosyan, another
That's right.
Armenian composer who lived in Istanbul, and we're going to listen to her music next. And she went to Paris. She studied with Paul Dukas. She was a fine
Yes.
pianist as well, and she uses material from the great Armenian composer Komitas, whose music you've recorded.
Right. I knew Koharik quite well. She and my aunt were almost contemporaries. That's how I know them. Uh, but she devoted herself. She was not married, so there was no mother-in-law telling her, play the piano, don't play the piano. So she did whatever she wanted to do. And yes, she studied in Paris with Paul Dukas and Lazare Levy, and she performed. She was a very good pianist, and she performed mostly her own compositions. Her compositions were written mostly for the piano. She came to New York, to other parts of the United States. She performed in Europe quite a bit, in the Middle East, especially in Cairo, I think. Uh, so she was quite well known. Unfortunately, she died when she was 57 years old from throat cancer. But I remember um, playing for her, not her pieces, but if I had an exam at the conservatory, I would run through my program at her place, which was very interesting, and I learned a great deal from her. Also, she had a different perspective on music than my aunt or my Austrian teacher.
And
So yeah, it was wonderful. And yes, and as you said, she was all her pieces, most of her pieces, piano pieces, are based on melodies which Komidas, the founder of contemporary Armenian music, collected by wandering from village to village in Armenia and writing down those melodies that the villagers sang. It was very strange because uh, when he wrote the notes, the villagers would be um, uncomfortable with the whole situation and would stop singing because they had never seen anybody doing anything like that. So Komidas actually had to hide here and there so that they wouldn't be aware, the villagers would not be aware of his presence. And that's how he collected 2,500 songs.
it's like,
He,
oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I just have to interrupt. It's like when the stories about Sviatoslav Richter just hating the microphone for when, hating to be recorded, and so they had to hide it in a potted palm or something.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I mean, most of his recordings are live. There are very few studio recordings.
Right.
He just hated it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Anyway,
let's, yeah. Well, let's listen to Koharik Gazarosyan.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
From your new album by women. Two Preludes by Koharik Gazarosyan, performed by my guest Şahan Arzruni from his new album, By Women, all music by women Armenian composers. Are you surprised that these haven't been performed and recorded before, and that you rescued most of them from obscurity?
Oh, no, no. I mean, there is our culture is, until recently, man came first. That's why.
Yeah, well, apparently in the
That's
United States, men still come first. Yeah.
Well, okay. We'll discuss that
We
at
will.
another time.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go back to the earliest piece on this album. Tell us about that.
Well, that's what I think. I have no idea whether there is anything earlier than what you are going to play. Again, it was all about networking. I have a friend, a musicologist in Cairo, and his name is Haig Avakian, and I asked him if he knew any Armenian women composers during the 19th century, and he actually came up with this lady who was born in 1863, and she wrote this piece, The Nightingale of Armenia, when she was only 16 years old. And unfortunately, when she was 22, she died. So I think probably this is the only piece that she wrote. It's very pretty. It's an amateur piece, obviously. Not obviously, but it is. But a very pretty one. It's like a polka. And it was published for the first time in 1913 in an almanac. And that's how my friend in Cairo knew about it. And he sent it to me, and I recorded, and I'm hoping not, at least, this is the composer, the woman composer, who is the earliest one writing for the piano.
Tell us her name.
Her name is Lucy Hazarabedian.
Okay. And it's called The Nightingale of Armenia. Let's listen to it. It's really lovely. The Nightingale of Armenia, Hazarabadian.
That's right.
Hazarabadian, yeah. Wonderful. With Şahan Arzruni, who is my guest this evening here on KALW. And you are in New York City. It's getting very late there. So let's just listen to one last piece and go from the earliest piece on this album by women that you have just released to, I think this might be the latest one, by Mary Kuyumjian, who's a wonderful composer and lives also in New York.
That's
and was a recently featured at the Other Minds Festival that with Charles Amirkhanian. How did you and Mary encounter each other, get in touch about this piece?
I mean, I have to get to know, whatever composer I meet. And I invited her to my house for dinner, and we became friends. And I asked her if she had some piano pieces I wanted to, learn and perform. And she told me about two pieces. The other one was recorded already, and so I chose this one. This was actually, I haven't the words, that's the title, and it has two versions. One is for quartet, that's written for Kronos, and then there is the piano version. It is a very interesting composition in that the entire composition is 8 notes throughout, both right hand and left hand. And the interesting aspect is the way she has distributed accents. And the right hand and the left hand are independent as far as the accents are concerned. And she creates a very sometimes disturbing kind of music, sometimes very curious. And when I spoke to her about this aspect, she said this was written right after the pandemic and around when George Floyd was murdered. And she said there was no way I could express my feelings about what was going on in the world through text. So I found it much easier to express it through music. And so I did the premiere of this recording, and there it is. It's called I Haven't the Words.
By Mary Kuyumjian.
That's right.
That is amazing. Mary Kuyumjian, I haven't the words, with Şahan Arzruni on the piano in that recording. It's amazing how something so seemingly simple can be so powerful.
Right, right. He's
Using
a terrific composer.
using limited resources and just
Right.
making the most of them. Yeah,
Mm.
wonderful. I'm going to let you. It's getting late there in New York City. It's are you? It's not past your bedtime. It would
No,
be
no.
past mine. Uh, we have one more composer to listen to.
Okay.
Geguni Chichian.
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 Geoni Chichian. Yeah.
Born in 1929, and she wrote the sonatina in 1986.
Right. She's still alive, and I'm always in touch with her. And actually, we are going to do soon her trumpet pieces. She has written many, many pieces for trumpet and piano, and I
Oh,
like them a lot. So I have a friend, Michael Sarian, and he's going to do the trumpet part, and I'm going to play the piano part. I want
wonderful.
to, yeah,
There isn't a lot of literature for trumpet and piano, is there?
I guess you mean among the Armenian composers
No, in general.
in
It's
general? No, I wouldn't say that.
There's a
I mean,
Virgil
there's an
Thompson
Armenian
piece. Yeah.
composer, his name, and he has written a concerto for trumpet and uh, orchestra, and
Mm,
that's a wonderful, wonderful piece. No, I mean, I
yeah.
mean, trumpet. Yes, it's not like piano. I
Uh-huh.
mean, the piano has the richest repertoire,
Right. The
obviously.
piano is the best. Um,
Yeah.
Tell us about Geguni Chichian before we
Keone?
listen to her sonatina.
Yes. It's a three movement piece. You are going to play just the first movement, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And I have gotten to know her over the years. She's 94 now. And it was when when I visited her, uh, she's always giving me new material to take a look at it. And when this project was going to become a reality, I wanted to include her music as well. And I learned the sonatina, and you know, I thought I would just send her a CD, which I would do it on my own piano at home. And I sent it to Armenia through friends. And I called her and I was expecting, oh, isn't this wonderful? She was very unhappy with my invitation. And she said, no, 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 no. Just follow what is on the score. Okay, I said. And this time, you know, 2 weeks afterward, I got on the telephone and put the telephone by the piano. I played it again, and she was unhappy. She said, "Look," she said, "don't do it. Don't play it. While I'm alive," she said, "I want my pieces played the way I want them played. After I'm dead, people can play the way they want to." It really hurt me the way she put it. So I really put my mind to it, and I wouldn't play again for her because she said, "Don't record it." And then I sent a recording, and she was very, very, very pleased with the result. So that's
Was it very different? Was your interpretation very different from what you had sent to her?
it was the phrasing that she wanted. She wanted, I feel that the pianist or any musician, any performer, does not just interpret what is on the paper. The pianist or violinist, whatever it is, recreates the music because what you have on that piece of paper is not the whole thing. It's maybe 10, 20% of the music. Why is my playing? I mean, would be different from, let's say, Richard Good's playing. Why? Every pianist does things different. You know that, the piano is the piano. I mean, you can't do that much with the piano, but the way you touch the keys, the way you produce the sound, the way you phrase the musical lines, that all makes a difference. You cannot write that thing. There's no way you can write that thing. I mean, that makes it possible for the performer to kind of, I'm not exaggerating this word, to recreate the whole thing. That's the way I look at it. But Chichian wanted my interpretation to be much, much closer to what she had. I mean, Louise Talma was like that also. For example, if she had said the quarter note would be 72, if you played it at 68, she would object to it. Everybody is different. Listen.
Yeah, it's true. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
talking this evening.
Thank
And here is Keguni
Kelly.
Chichian.
Yes.
The first movement of her sonatina. Thank you, Şahan Arzruni.
Thank you, Sarah.
That's music by Keguni Chichian from the CD By Women with pianist Şahan Arzruni.